So if you haven't already, like I always say, make sure that you subscribe because I'm aiming to hit 10k before the end of the year, and if you help me achieve that goal, I'd love you forever. But let's get into this one. So it feels like a while that I've actually done a big Finish review, and that's quite possibly because I've not listened to any for quite a while, but I'm hoping to get back into the swing of things now, and hopefully these will be a little bit more regular. So from the title and thumbnail, as you can tell, we're going to be talking about Out of Time 2. For those of you who don't know, Out of Time is, I guess, a sequel to the original Out of Time, which saw the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, team up with the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker, to fight against the Daleks. This time we've got the 10th Doctor again teaming up with the 5th Doctor to fight against the Cybermen. Now right from the off, I've got to say, going into this I wasn't sure, because I do like the concept and I did like the other one, but it did just sort of feel like, oh, we've done Daleks, now we're going to do Cybermen. Next one they're probably going to do the Master, then they'll probably do Sontarans or something like that. Do you get what I mean? I sort of was a bit iffy, like, oh, is this what it's going to be? Very sort of villain of the week with just nostalgia bait, but not gonna lie, it's working because this is arguably better than the first one in my opinion. I'm not going to try and compare the two. Whilst they are similar sort of things, they are very different episodes. So, but like I said, I will have to compare a little bit just to see how one did something better than the other one. Right from the gate, I've got to say, I think I prefer the way that this story starts, and compared to the other one, like, you've got this incredible cathedral, which I think is a really interesting concept, whereas this doesn't have that. But I think the journey into the story feels a lot more natural and a lot more organic, and you are just thrusted into the story a hell of a lot quicker, and it doesn't feel as jarring. What I especially liked about this as well is that it messes around with time. It's not like the two Doctors are in the same place and they just happen to bump into each other and then have to go off and solve whatever's happening. With this one, the 10th Doctor's doing his own thing, the 5th Doctor's doing his own thing. Alright, they're in the same city, but they're in two totally different time periods, and because of various different events, they come together. And then throughout the rest of the story, that whole time travel aspect is still here, because they go to one year and then another year because they're all connected by Venus or something like that. And I thought the actual story concept was really, really strong, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. David Tennant, like in the previous one, just falls back into the role of the 10th Doctor. Like, I've not listened to many David Tennant 10th Doctor audios, but from what I have heard, he does a great job. One thing I will say, again, going back to the other one, in the previous one, I remember complaining that it felt very whiny, moany, mopey 10th Doctor, where he's like, oh, I'm gonna die soon, and I don't really like that. In this one, you don't get that at all, which I thought was really refreshing, actually. It just felt like the 10th Doctor as most people would know him. Peter Davison as well, I thought was fantastic in this story. And what I also liked as well is these Doctors, of course, have met on screen before with Time Crash, and they do reference that in this story, which was something that I wasn't sure if was canon, like if Time Crash was actually a canon thing. I always treated it as if it was. I think they even make a comment about being in the TARDIS together again or something like that. So yeah, their chemistry, I mean, naturally it's going to be good anyway, because they're pretty much family, essentially. So if they weren't good together, then tough home life, eh? But no, thankfully that wasn't the case. And some of the interaction that they have, it was weird because the 5th Doctor was shown in a way that I haven't always seen him, but it works for his character and his Doctor, and I quite like that they explored that a little bit. And I said a complaint in the previous one that it felt like Tom's Doctor said a couple of things or did a couple of things where I'm like, he wouldn't have done that in his era. Whereas with Davison, even though that is still the case in terms of he sounds more like a modern Doctor, I think it works a little bit better for him. And so those moments are even fewer and far between compared to the previous one, and it does feel like this is the 5th Doctor as you know him, just in a modern style story. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this story actually is there weren't as many characters. There was only the two Doctors, obviously the Cybermen are involved, and then you've got this time agent, and you've also got this other French dude, and they are pretty much it. I did like that because this story is not that long. It's essentially like a one-part story in the modern era. So you've got a hell of a lot of stuff to go through. You've obviously got to get the Doctors together, get into the story, see what the Cybermen are up to, introduce the side characters. The less side characters there are, the easier and the quicker it is to get into the story, and you can also flesh out those characters a little bit better. And I definitely got that impression with this story. I thought Tina Drake as a character was very sort of Captain Jack-esque. I mean, she is a time agent from the 51st century and has an American accent and a vortex manipulator. So she is kind of Captain Jack Light, but she also felt like a new character at the same time. I thought she was a really cool addition. I don't think she was in it too much. I don't think she wasn't in it enough. I think she was in it the perfect amount, and I think she balanced out with the Doctors really, really well, actually. Now, the French dude that I mentioned before, I think it's Mark Gatiss. I haven't actually checked. It could be Mark Gatiss because it does sound like him. If that's the case, I thought he did an awesome job, or if it wasn't Mark Gatiss, whoever it was, he did an awesome job. And again, he's the main character where they sort of play with time and you interact with this guy throughout multiple periods of his life. And his backstory is kind of tragic, actually. And at the beginning, you think, wow, what an arsehole. But as the story goes along, you sort of open your eyes a little bit and you're like, ah, that's what happened. That's why he is the way that he is. However, let's talk about my biggest bugbearer in this story, and that is the Cybermen. Thing is, I've said it countless times, the Cybermen are my favourite villain, but I feel like the problem that I have with the Cybermen, particularly as of late, going all the way back to possibly even Series 2 of the modern era, the Cybermen always feel like they're not the main threat or the main villain. They feel like the side piece, or they feel like the army of the main villain. We've had it countless times with like the Master. They were sort of cannon fodder against the Daleks. They're almost played for laughs in a couple of stories as well, which I don't particularly like. Thinking more like Closing Time, not that it was meant to be funny, but in places it was laughable. But either way, this is another story where I feel like the main villain is the French dude. I can't actually remember his name now. I feel like it's Dell or something like that, at least that's his last name. And it feels like the Cybermen have this epic plan that they are using through this guy, as opposed to them just living out their plan, and it's like, we have to defeat the Cybermen, not we have to get rid of this guy first and then we can deal with the Cybermen. Do you know what I mean? They also kind of go with like a lone Cyberman vibe as well, which I thought was a bit odd considering that the last series did that as well. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I've no idea when either of them were written or if they even knew about each other. Then again, I think that this was executed pretty well in terms of this scout going through searching for someone to execute the plan and change history. I thought that was actually really cool, and there was a moment in particular that I thought was really, really special with the Cybermen, or like their plan. Again, linking in with the time travel stuff. The 5th Doctor gets frozen in like this stasis pod, and then years later the 10th Doctor is the one who opens it and finds him, and then they realise that in that moment, because those two being together is a paradox, that's what causes history to change in its entirety. So even though when the 5th Doctor was there these things were happening and the 10th Doctor was in the future, they didn't actually change the timeline until that paradox happened, which sounds mind-blowing and is probably either a load of bollocks or some genius science, but either way, I thought it was awesome. I really liked that. Overall, I thought this was a surprisingly enjoyable listen. I don't know why I went into it a bit skeptical, because I did enjoy the previous one. I do like the 5th Doctor, and I do enjoy the 10th Doctor a little bit more now on audio. And I feel like some of the issues that it had in the first one, I didn't necessarily pick up on them in this story, which is good. It shows that they're improving, and it was a thoroughly enjoyable listen. I definitely listened to it again. I'm going to recommend it to you guys as well if you haven't heard it. And I can't remember what I gave the first one, but I'd say this is like 8.5 out of 10. In the comments below though, guys, let me know what you think of Out of Time 2. Did you like it? Did you not? Why? Whatever it is, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description as always, so if you'd follow me on any of those things, then I'd absolutely love you forever. But till next time guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.